Jai Hind and welcome to Dev Talks. This is Aadi. As you can see, I have with me someone special, Mr. Shree Iyer from PGURUS, who's going to talk to us. This is the election season. The midterms have just gotten over, and now all eyes are on the big 2024 date where both India and US get into the elections. My question is, what does India need to be careful about? Sir, thank you so much for joining me for this talk. It's a startup discussion, but I think there'll be a lot more that will need to be discussed on this subject. Initial thoughts, sir.
Adi, it's always a pleasure to be on your channel, and this is certainly a unpleasant surprise for the Republicans. They were running on Biden's record, and they were thinking that they were going to get control of both Senate and the House. See, in the United States, the executive has three branches, just like in India. You have the Lok Sabha, Rajya Sabha, and the cabinet, which is the third big body. In the United States, you have the Congress, which is like Lok Sabha. It gets elected every 2 years. Then the Senate is the other one. It's much more powerful than the Rajya Sabha. There they get elected every 6 years. And then the president who sits in the White House, he gets elected every 4 years. So sometimes all three will happen, but you see how these things keep everybody on their toes. The expectation was that the Republicans were going to capture both the Senate and the House. Now they have not been able to capture the Senate. Worse, in the House, they're creeping to that magic number. And even as this creep happens, there are only a few seats left, and the Democrats are putting up a very stiff fight. So somewhere the Republicans and the rank and file has got blindsided. And I'll tell you what that was.
Indeed, sir, it seems to be a complete upset, and that is what actually brought me to this discussion that are we going to see a season of upsets going forward? So what happened here, sir?
So in the case of Republicans, what they thought was that, as always, midterms usually go against the party in power. They said, well, we have highlighted all the issues wrong with the Biden administration: inflation, missteps, illegal immigration, what have you. And all these are, things that bring out the Republicans in big numbers. Okay. So they thought that would be enough for us to win. Now, the surprise that happened was that if we take the total count of the number of Republicans who have voted, Adi, 6 million more Republicans have voted compared to 2020. You take an election, see how many people voted. There were 6 million more votes. Yeah, the Democrats appear to have, managed to still win more. See, what I'm saying 6 million more is, let's say if Democrats got 145, these guys got 151 million votes. Okay. So if you poll more votes, how come the numbers are not showing up at the win-loss column? So this is one of those mysteries. And the United States elections have actually got distilled to 6 to 8 states, Adi. These are the states that go one way or the other. And these are the ones that are now picking the president, who is the majority in Congress, who is the majority in Senate, and so on. Arizona, Nevada, both of these are neighboring states to where I live, California. Then there are a couple of other states, and these things make up the body that keeps vacillating back and forth. Now, what is believed to have happened was that the Republican rank and file did not vote using mail. That means you just put it in your post box and it goes. Okay. And if you take a look at the number of mail-in ballots during COVID, that is 2020 election, 1 in 3 Americans voted mail-in ballots. Okay. That is 100 million people, 101 million people. And in 2022, 41 million people voted mail-in ballots. So essentially, people got used to this. I don't have to go to a polling station. I don't have to stand in a line. I don't have to spend that 1 extra hour. And who knows, this crowd line, I could catch COVID. I mean, once you get that mindset that I don't want to go out and vote, you don't go out and vote. So the interesting statistic that has stopped the Republicans on their tracks is that if you look at this 41 million votes that were mailed in, 85%, and this number I need to verify it, but many are murmuring 85% voted Democrat.
Wow.
So it's not a math. It's not a matter of even Stevens. So the Republicans don't believe in this. Then what happens if there's adverse weather? If somebody can't get to the polling booth in time, then he misses out, right? So now the rank and file needs to go back and say, listen, it doesn't matter. Your commitment is to vote. Do mail-in voting. I expect that this 41 million that happened in 2022 will go to maybe 60 million in 2024. 1 in 5 will vote using mail-in. I expect that to happen. We'll see. And I want an even contest. I don't want people murmuring, oh, because this was skewed in one party's favor, therefore they are winning. But the unfortunate truth is that's exactly what is happening. See, the two were at 200 and 194 or something like that. Okay. Now the 194 has moved up to 204, and this 200 has moved to 208 fairly quickly. From there, it is like pulling teeth. Now it's at 212, 204, and there are only like 18 or seats left, 18 odd seats left for the grabs. And every one of them is being counted down to the to the wire. Like the difference is like 2,000 votes, 4,000 votes. Easily it will trigger a recount. What happens in a recount? People will say, I need a manual recount. I mean, this is where US is funny, Aadi. Every state has its own rules on what constitutes a recount. Okay, I've written a book about this. It's called Who Painted My State Purple? And this is where you can easily do shenanigans. For instance, this year, California voters were not required to sign on the back of the. See, you fill in the ballot and then you seal it in an envelope and then you drop off the envelope. This year, they relaxed that restriction. So what happened today, this time was, there was nobody to check my signature. Usually what happens is they have this electoral register and there they keep records. So polling station will have that. So I go there and say, I've already, the ballot paper is given to you. It comes by mail. You fill out you blacken out the choices. You put it in an envelope. You take this envelope, and in the back of the envelope, you're supposed to write your name, your address, and the way you normally sign. You go to the polling station. So what you gain is you don't have to go there, sit in front of the booth and decide. That takes 15-20 minutes. I mean, our ballots are like 6 feet long, seriously. Because we are not just electing a senator or one congressman. We are also voting on a lot of issues. 1% for this, 2% for this. Do you want gambling for this particular? All sorts of things get elected. So there is school site council also we will vote. That is our school district, which is like 10 schools. These will have a site council and people will stand for that. And they'll say, which one do you want to elect? All that comes into this ballot box. So this time when I went to the polling station, there was no one to check my signature. Now, I'll give you an example, a way how it can be misused. Well, if I was mischievous, I could have come back home. My son last year voted, or 2020, he voted from here. Now he has moved away. But his ballot also was sitting with me. I know how he signs. I could have filled out. There was going to be nobody checking it. So I could have just voted. So things have become ridiculously easy to rig now. Ridiculously easy to rig. So this is a very unfortunate trend. And Republicans will have to come out with some super strategy to get around this. Otherwise, it's going to be a problem. And they also had some quality candidates missing. The candidate quality also was not very good. That also hurt them. On the other hand, Democrats had very good quality. They knew a winnable candidate. Amit Shah ji Zindabad, they had that winnable candidate. Very many places, the guy who they put up won.
Indeed, but the controversy has already started up about this. Of course, one thing in India, everybody's saying, yeah, why is it taking too long? It doesn't take 3-4 days to count votes. I mean, what's happening here? So that's something that I think in India, a lot of people are not able to understand. But the biggest controversy is coming out, and it came out yesterday, is that who are the donors to the Democratic Party? The number one donor came out to be George Soros, and the number two came out to be Sam Bankman-Friedman.
Yes,
FTX went down under yesterday, as a matter of fact. So how is this controversy kind of opening up? And of course, when you say George Soros, everybody's antennas in India just stand up. Okay, there's something wrong here. So how does all this kind of tie in?
Now, there have been, donors like this. Buffett used to donate to the Democrats also. Most businessmen play it safe, donate to both sides, and then whoever wins, you just go and congratulate that person and just keep going. What is interesting is this crypto company guy, FTX CEO, his net worth was around 10 billion.
Hmm.
He's supposed to have donated 35 or 34 million to the Democratic Party. It's a big amount of money. I'm sure he's buying his freedom using that money. So we'll have to wait and see if he'll ever go to jail. It's unfortunate. The Democrats had more money this time around. Normally, Republicans are just as good in funding. They used to rely on what is called as KOCH brothers. Koch brothers are very famous. They're in the North Carolina. They have a lot of industries. They used to be one of the big funders of that party, and I think they have been dialing it down a little bit. See, these things go up and down. Many in the Republican Party are not comfortable with Trump. So they may have even said, if you're going to continue to go behind Donald Trump, we are not going to put money. But these things are happening. The good news for the Republican Party as well as for the Democratic Party is that the newer generation looks much more promising because all of them are doddering at 80, 85 and so on. The Senate leader, Mitch McConnell, is 82 or 83. You have to factor like 2 or 3 years extra. These people will never give you the right age. Nancy Pelosi is in her 80s. Okay, Biden is also Biden, by the way, one time he dropped out of a presidential run because he had lied, outright lied. Because of the standards being lowered now for who can be a presidential candidate, this time nobody bothered. So he's also in 80s. Trump will be soon in his 80s. So all these people are going to eventually, I think there'll be like a time, okay, enough, all of you can take rest now. We are going to have a new set of people. So I, in fact, had a monologue today about the future of the leadership of these two parties. Who are the ones? And I'll send you the link on WhatsApp. You can take a look at it because that kind of will cue you in on where things are headed and which politician to track next. That will give you an idea. But a lot of homework that Republicans have to do. They need to go back and get their ground game going. Seriously.
So a lot of people actually, the India factor is that when people look at the Democrats, they find, okay, it's a little off. The relations aren't that clean and clear. And that probably is setting in when you see all these kind of back-end stories also coming up in India. And of course, in India, the insight that you're giving us is not probably available with the everyday person who's analyzing this stuff. Now, how do you look at the Democrats overall, going against, not going against, but going with India, going forward right till the 2024, where both the countries get into elections? And that's going to be a big event, sir.
Aadi, some of the Democratic senators and congressmen have actually sided with India. It's not like, party lines. There are many people who take independent thought. For example, Ro Khanna was vilified for one tweet that he put out saying Hindu is good, Hindutva is bad. I mean, you saw the same thing repeated by Rahul Gandhi. Remember? That Gandhi is Hindu and Godse is Hindutva and things like that. Right? Yeah. The Gangotri of that was a tweet that Ro Khanna had put. Okay. Then about 6 months ago or 8 months ago, Ro Khanna introduced a resolution wherein he was going to exempt India from the CATSA sanctions for having purchased S-400. So he got some brownie points. And then he was one of the co-sponsors of HR 1430, which is to recognize the Hindu genocide that took place in the 1971 war in Bangladesh. Now, unfortunately, that didn't have time to pass through the houses. Excuse me. But it will be reintroduced now. And therefore, now Ro Khanna is seen more of a balanced person. He still caucuses with the Pakistani caucus. So he's a kind of a mixed bag. His constituency is like that. It is about 29% Hindu and probably 20 to 22% Muslim. And most of them are from Pakistan, Bangladesh, and perhaps Afghanistan. So and that bloc tends to vote as a bloc,
Block, yeah.
and you know that. I mean, this history repeats itself. So he has been a pleasant revelation. Raja Krishnamurthy has always had Hindutva, he's always been a pro-Hindu congressman. In fact, he was one of the few who gave an written condemnation of what happened to Kanhaiya Lal. So a lot of things are happening. These are all Democrats. By the way, now there are 5 Indian American Democrats. There's one more Democrat who got elected. I'll give you all the details maybe next time, because I'm not 100% sure if it has been certified or not. He's from Texas. So so things are changing. We are getting more people, but none, no congressman or woman of Indian American origin from the Republicans yet. We don't have strong enough candidates, so we have to wait and see when it happens.
There's a hint towards Tulsi to a large extent, but I don't know how far that will actually materialize.
Aadi, Tulsi doesn't have the ground game. She's from Hawaii, right? So there are things that, so she's from Hawaii. That means her base is Hawaii. And Hawaii is like a tourister's place. People are a little laid back. And if she goes and stands there, which she was standing there for a long time, unfortunately, big money got in there and made sure that she didn't even get past the primaries.
Yikes.
So now she'll have to go back and contest from somewhere else. So she has done military service, so that's her calling card. So we have to find out where, which party finds a slot for her. She has quit the Democratic Party. She hasn't joined Republican. So she may be waiting for an invitation. 15th November, like tomorrow, Donald Trump is supposed to make an announcement. He could say he's running for president, and he could also, I don't think they usually don't announce their running mates this early. So that could happen tomorrow.
So now, one of the interesting things that is coming out is the whole narrative which is building up with regards these 2 major elections that are going to come up, is that polarization is going to be the key. Even in the States, we have a similarity of a division in the society, and we see that same structure in India forming up to a large extent. And how do you think both these things will kind of go together? Because these are 2 very strong and very, very, the largest and the oldest democracy, so-called. So it's going to be an interesting comparative to kind of see how these 2 societies go forward. What's your opinion about that, sir?
I was thinking that the 2024 would go Republican in the United States until these 2022 results. It has been, frankly, a big surprise. Now, one of the reasons that the Democrats are giving for the success is they're saying we underpolled the younger demographic, and they are solidly Democratic. So, because projections are all polling, you're just polling, right? If you don't poll enough, then your estimates could go off. So, if that is the case, then it's going to be that much harder for the Republican Party to come back to power in 2024. The other thing being talked about is that there is a good challenger, a real challenger for Trump now. His name is DeSantis, and he is he's a governor of Florida. He won big as a governor of Florida just in this November 8 elections. So he could be also throwing his hat in the presidential ring, and it is expected that he might announce Nikki Haley as his running mate. So on the one side you have Trump and Tulsi, and the other side Ron DeSantis and Nikki Haley, possible. So that could really stir the party. And DeSantis is a traditional Republican. The traditional Republican bank support will come behind him probably. And if he wins the nomination, then he can probably rally the troops, and he might actually be able to defeat Biden, who has announced that he is running for 2024. So, because if you put a good candidate, Biden will lose. There's no doubt about that.
That's an interesting this thing that you're putting out, sir. But this man and woman sort of a thing, is it becoming a trend?
It could be because see, something went wrong for the Republican Party, which is not of their making. You know what that is, Aadi?
Sir,
The the U.S. Supreme Court, it's called SCO, Supreme Court of the United States. Interestingly enough, U.S. there are several Supreme Courts. There's also a state Supreme Court. Every state has its own Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court of the United States, it's called SCOTUS, they gave a ruling that basically abolished abortion, and then they left it to the individual states to implement it or not. Now, this has been seen as an anti-woman vote. And because the SCOTUS, the composition is Republican, they have hung it on the Republicans' neck. That's what the Democrats did. The Republicans should have said, listen, these are justices, they have spoken their mind. They didn't want to do that. They wanted to go and say, yes, we are going to be, this is what we want. So this is where the mistake happened. And all those independent voters who are women, you know, they you know that thing, right? My body, my right, or something like that. And so that might have worked against the Republicans also. So they need to step away a little bit, cool down, rethink the strategy, and come back again. I mean, like the bad way in which India lost to England in the semifinals. It's I mean, people said we were 20 runs short. I think they were good for 40 runs. They scored it in 16 overs. They would have chased down 200 plus. It's not that. I mean, Rahul Dravid was, trying to, sugarcoat the story. But India was never in the tournament. Never in the tournament. Everywhere it was a lucky break. 48 runs in 18 balls against Pakistan. Hair breadth win against Bangladesh. There was only one comfortable win. So in my book, I don't think they were all anyway. So you get the idea. Now Republicans have to go back and start their ground game, plan it, and see. Again, are the 8 states decide who becomes the president? So they need to put some serious thinking into understanding where things went wrong. I mean, if they had read my book, I wrote this book 18 months ago, right after the debacle in 2020. I had so much information. I did some research and I said, I'm going to write a story about this, how one party can lose the election so easily. And it's like nobody read that book. I mean, I've sold the book on Amazon. People, for those who are decision makers, they should have read the book to understand how these things can be easily done.
That's what amazes a lot of people in India. So first, as I said, the thing just takes too long for the results to come out. Of course, in India also, it doesn't come out the next day. But the day they say the results are there by about 1:30 in the afternoon, you know what's going to happen. Here, it's taking 3 days and there's just, this thing is not counted, that is not counted, it's just so many opportunities for people to kind of point a question.
Absolutely. Aadi, the thing is, inside a state, the way the election can be conducted can vary from county to county. County is the equivalent of a district in India. So a district could have its own special set of rules. You got to understand the ballot paper used in my zip code is different from the adjoining zip code. I told you, right? I belong to a particular school district. I'll be voting 5 resolutions that pertain to that school district. These will not be relevant for the next guy, which is why US walked away from an EVM. Because I told you, right, the ballot paper is 6 feet long. EVMs can't be made that big. EVMs can take 1 or 2 candidate elections. Who's your congressman? Who's your senator? Who's your vice president? President? That's it. Because the screen is only so much. So these are all challenges. And that's why I said every county can do it in its own way. So there has to be some sort of a separation between local issues and national issues. National issues should be consistent. That has been my wish. Anyway, I've been writing and talking about it. Let's see what happens. Only now they are hearing me in Washington, D.C. I'm across the world, across the continent for them.
Across the pond.
You're saying something. Yeah.
I'm saying, sir, coming towards the end, last couple of questions. The biggest one that I want to ask you is that, as you mentioned, national issues. In India, prices going up for anything kind of creates a national fervor. This whole sanction war and the economic war of attrition that we see, which is being fought against the Russians today, is affecting US inflation. It's affecting US cost of living and stuff like that.
Yes, it
Trade is
is.
going down. US barely inched across and missed out a recession itself. I It's a wonder that this did not come into the mainstream of the conversation, sir.
So what happened was, the inflation numbers were said to be very high, but it didn't really show on the ground. There are a few reasons for this. Inflation goes up because of two reasons, right? In India, if you say, if petrol prices go up, then immediately all the pulses, vegetables, grains, everything starts going up. This is a direct cost and an indirect cost, that sort of stuff. I mean, it's easy for people to justify why they are raising prices. US, on the other hand, which is much more of a corporate, even grocery stores are corporatized. So they have been able to manage the prices a little bit better. There are some things that it went up by 10%, but Biden was smart enough to draw on the strategic petroleum reserve and to bring the prices of petrol and diesel to within control. You got to remember also that not everybody is still going to work, commuting to work. They're working from home. So a petrol rise doesn't immediately start pinching your purse. It was only groceries, commodities, day-to-day things, must-have things, and so on and so forth. So there has been a bit of a softening on that. Again, Republicans need to do all these, nitty-gritty homework. Your messaging in one district cannot be the same for the adjoining district. These issues are different. They have to do a lot more work. That's how I feel.
So, the last question I want to ask you is that how do you think now, with the House getting reset, Nancy Pelosi, I don't know whether she'll be sitting on the same chair or not.
And yeah, she'll not be, if the Democrats don't secure a majority in Congress, then she will not be the speaker.
So that's what I'm saying. So the House is getting reset, which will also call upon a lot of foreign relations reset that would take place. How do you think this whole thing will gel up with India? We've had Janet Yellen coming up. There's interactions happening in Bali. Jaishankar Saab met Antony Blinken. So there's some, of course, the relations are on a solid ground and there's clear understanding. But how do you think this is going to go forward, considering that there have been a little bit of differences with regards, especially the Russian aspect of it, sir?
Well, I think India did what's best for India. I can't fault India for that. And they took a risk that sanctions won't be imposed on us because we are buying cheap Russian oil. And they did it because even Western Europe was buying Russian oil. You got to remember when the purchase started, right? So you can't single out India and say you did not toe the line, therefore you shall be punished. So now the Russian oil is not flowing into the Western Europe, but what has happened to India has already happened. Western Europe needs oil, and they need to refine it quickly. And India has got a new industry. I believe it's as big as 35 billion now, which is to get in crude from some country and take that crude, refine it, sell it back to that country very, very fast, within 30 days or something like that, start to finish. Crude comes in and goes back to the destination in 30 days. So this is something that India is doing now. So that's a good, export earner for India, and they don't ask where it came from. What you send a tanker, I'll fill it up and send it back to you. No questions asked.
So what you're trying to say is because we're meeting a particular demand, I think things are going to be nominal.
Go ahead.
What you're trying to say is because we're meeting a particular demand for the collective West, so as to say, things are going to be normal and things are going to move forward, because I think that's one of the biggest stumbling blocks I see going forward as far as the narrative war that will be launched against India from the West before the 2024 elections. We've already started seeing hints of it. So,
Adi, you'll be surprised. The Hindu American now is not keeping quiet anymore. Whether it is because of PGURUS or some other writers like Rajiv Malhotra, there is a fair amount of awareness now. People are demanding a lot of things of their local congressmen, their local senators, their local councillors, and so on. So you can't do like that resolution after resolution. They've stopped, right? Once they lost in Chicago, they completely stopped because they said, look, this is a game. I mean, people started showing the resolution. It's ditto wording. So that means somebody gave it to you and you're just vomiting on that. So it has become a problem. So those tactics have been stopped. However, there are other dangers. The Islamic lobby, primarily consisting of Pakistani Americans, will try to keep pushing what they think needs to be happening because it's being funded by ISI. India doesn't have that strategy quite. They don't believe in doing this lobbying and all that stuff,
Underhanding.
underhanded stuff. So I don't know what I mean. Israel doesn't do it either, but Israel has a rock
Lobby.
solid majority amongst the congressmen and senators, which India doesn't still have. So somewhere you need to fortify your positions.
Indeed, sir. As a matter of fact, I want to say this because especially your channel is watched by a lot of people in the states, a lot of Indians in the states. So I guess there is going to be that, if I may, a revolution of the mind, and I'm using my words very carefully with regards to a change in the thought process of what is actually happening on the ground. Because if you do read the New York Times and the Washington Post, you get a very singular line of thought, which is, "Oh God, oh God, oh God." But with the alternative opinions and the alternative media which is coming out, like yourself and so many more people who are writing about these things, talking about these things, I'm sure ground level support for India, especially in the states, would help quite a bit, and that's something I absolutely agree with, sir.
Absolutely, and India has nothing to worry from the United States. If it does a mistake deliberately, that there will be consequences. But other than that, like buying oil from Russia, people have understood that it's a good deal for them. Why are you creeping so much, right? So US didn't. Nobody complained that you are going and doing that. So I think you just go with the flow. India will do well. I think BJP should be in power for another 3 terms, in my opinion. According to me, it doesn't matter who, but it needs to be in power for at least 3 more terms because the regional parties, the opposition has just completely lost it, Adi. I can't find 1 ounce of blood that says I am a national of India first. That's what my problem is. These people have become such vote bank plunderers and panderers. It's just a disgrace.
That's one of the drawbacks of having a democracy, sir. Having said that, thank you so much, sir, for joining me and this enlightening discussion with a peek into what is happening in the US, how it's going to impact the entire thing. Because setting up of the government and the way that both the houses are going to go forward will tell you what's happening. There's a lot of controversy as usual, which is stated with every election. I think the election lost and the election being stolen has not yet come in, but one wonders what is going to happen.
Yes.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining me and giving me your insights. And of course, it's always a pleasure to listen to you on your show and to talk to you personally, sir.
My pleasure, Adi, and viewers do support Adi. Is a very very good platform. He makes us think. Every guest he brings on his channel is full of wisdom, and you get a new insight into topics. Um, he gives us complete freedom to express our thoughts. So I'm very thankful to you again, Adi. Looking forward to our next session.
Thank you, sir.
Namaskar.
Jai Hind.
Jai Hind.